This is being done by the fact that both knees and ankles are working together to provide the sprinter with the power that's needed to push off. One of the levers that can be seen, another one of the levers that is seen is a second class lever. This is seen at the ankles when the sprinter has gone from on your marks to get set. Furthermore, the sprinter is moving on the transverse axis as they go from on your marks to the get set stage. Moreover, the knee is working as well to help aid this movement. This is because the lever at the knee is using a third class lever. This is seen by them going through the stages and getting ready to go from the first stage to the second stage of the movement. Again, the same with the ankle and the knee is working on the transverse axis. This is because the same with the ankle, the body is being pushed forward and upwards and simultaneously forward. This is good for the athlete as this is going to give them the driving force needed to build up the speed needed during the race. During the execution phase, the runner is in what is known as the drive phase of the sprint. This is where they just come out of the blocks and are pushing hard for the first 10 to 20 meters of the race. The lever that is being used at the ankle is a second class lever. This is because they are running. As they are running, they are driving into the ground and lifting their ankle back up and pulling their toes upwards. With this, they are moving on the transverse axis. This is because when they are in this stage of the sprint, they're pulling their legs up and pushing it forward and then pushing them down behind them and rotating it around. Furthermore, the shoulders are playing a role in this phase of the sprint. The lever that is being used is a third class lever. This is because as they are running, the fulcrum is a shoulder joint as the runner is pushing against the gravitational force, pulling it back down. The axis this is working on is still the transverse axis. This is because they're pushing and pulling their hands forward to produce their momentum with the legs to follow along with it. Moreover, the runner's head is looking downwards during this phase of the sprint. The type of lever that this is working is the first class lever. This is because the fulcrum is in the middle of both the load and the effort. Within the final stage of the sprint, the runner is trying to keep themselves as straight as possible for the last bit. This stage of the 100-meter sprint is where the runner is at full velocity and full velocity and speed, and they're pushing all the way through until the line. In this phase, the knee is working as the third class lever, and this is seen when they are running. The fulcrum is the knee, and they're putting the effort to pull their knee up as they're fighting against the load, being the gravitational force, trying to straighten their knee back out. Furthermore, the shoulder is working as a lever here as well. It is acting as a third class lever. This is because the knee is the fulcrum, whilst the runner is trying to push their arms out and make the effort against gravity, trying to pull their arm back down. Finally, the head has risen to be in line with the rest of the body during the follow-through stage of the race. The sprinter's head is still a first-class lever. This is still working on the transverse axis as they're moving their heads backwards from the position that it was fully forwards. How centre of mass affects a 100-meter sprinter. During the drive phase, the centre of mass is in the front of their body as they're leant forward. Also, the centre of mass is slightly higher as their arms are higher than normal. This makes the runner slightly unstable, but is counteracted by them running with a wider stride to keep them more stable. In the execution phase, the centre of mass changes slightly as they're driving both their arms back and forth, which makes it go higher in the body. Finally, in the follow-through stage, their centre of mass is changed yet again as they've straightened up, however, it's always moving up and down as they're swinging their arms back and forth. The centre of mass changes for the athlete as they go from on your marks to get set. This because as they get down into the blocks, their centre of mass will be slightly in front of them to help them keep stable when they're just in the blocks. However, as the official says to the athlete, get set, the centre of mass will change a bit further outside of their body. This is because the athlete has risen their body up further, and also they've pushed their body forwards a bit from the on your mark stage. As the athlete goes from the on your mark stage to the get set stage of the preparation phase of this movement, their centre of mass changes to accompany for the change in stability that they may face. This is because they've changed their way that they're positioned in the blocks and what they have done to get from the two different stages in the preparation phase. Furthermore, when they are in the blocks, they have their hands on the floor to keep them stable, especially from the stages of on your marks to get set. This will give them the stability that they need when they are about to start the race. This is done so the athlete doesn't wobble when they are getting ready to start the race, as they've given themselves a larger base for them to spread that mass around. This is important for them because if they were to wobble, this could cause a range of problems this could cause them a range of problems at the start of the race. This could be that they fall out of the blocks on their into one of their opponents, or this could mean that they even possibly false start and be disqualified from the race before it even begins. Both levers and centre of the mass affect the preparation phase in a positive manner because the runner goes from the on your marks to get set. Because as the runner goes from the on your marks to the get set stage, they have changed their centre of mass by using both second class and third class levers. This is beneficial to them because they have adapted their centre of mass to positively adapt their stability when it comes to them changing the way that they're positioned in the blocks, with the position of the centre of mass being outside of the front of their body. It pulls them to the ground quicker. Moreover, they have their hands down on the floor to allow them to have a base underneath them to support them. If they weren't able to use their hands as the hands to create this base, they wouldn't be able. They would have to start whilst they were stood up. This means that they would have an awful start, and they wouldn't get up to speed until much later into the race, which could jeopardise that for them. This is good for the athlete as their centre of mass doesn't change with them when with their stability, which will be changed with them, which would make their stability less. In turn, means that they may not get a good start. Moreover, if the centre of mass doesn't change with them, they may feel that their stability is affected then they may try to get out of the blocks before the race has even started. During the execution phase, the runner is now in this drive phase. This is where they're just out of the blocks and they're pushing hard for the first 10 to 20 meters of the race. The lever that is being used at the ankle is a second class lever. This is because as they're running, they're driving back into the ground where their lifting their ankles and pulling their toes. During this drive phase, the runner is slowly bringing themselves back upwards into a straight position. As they come out the blocks, their centre of mass is slowly returning back into their body as they're slowly coming back up. However, as they're still slightly bent over, their centre of mass is still a bit forward in the body. Furthermore, they are using their arms higher than normal, and their centre of mass will also be risen upwards rather than staying around their belly button. As they're coming out of the blocks, they are still lower to the ground, and Furthermore, this allows them to keep their stability a bit better than if they were to. Furthermore, as they're pushing out the blocks, the bigger and larger their strides will be, creating this base underneath them, which allows them to keep their stability rather than if they took smaller strides. This means that if they have more chance, this means that they have more chance of staying fully stable, and gives them less chance of falling forwards when they come out of the blocks. While the runner is in the flow-through stage, their centre of mass will slightly be higher than the normal place, which is their belly button. This will make the runner slightly unstable as they have got their arms raised up slightly, which in turn will make their centre of mass come upwards and will make it so that it is harder for them to stay stable. Unlike the preparation phase and the execution phase, the centre of mass was forward in the body, which is unlike in the follow-through stage. When they're in this stage, their centre of mass stays in the same place because they are constantly moving their arms up and down as they're in this stage. The centre of mass is higher than normal in the body, and the stability will be affected by this, but not as much as it normally would be in the preparation phase or the execution phase. This means that they are unstable to a point, but not that unstable that it will affect their run. This means that the athlete may have to change their technique a little bit, such as having their stride length a little bit larger than a normal run. This gives them a wider base, which in turn allows them to be more stable and avoid stumbling or falling within the race. Levers affect the follow-through stage of this sprint quite a bit. This is because when the athlete uses their arms, they work in unison with their legs. The quicker that the arms are going, the quicker that their legs are going to be turning over themselves. Furthermore, while the levers at the shoulders are moving the arms up and down, the more the centre of mass will be affected. This means the runner will be unstable to an extent, but will not affect them that much during this stage.